What's up, everybody? I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and I want to talk again about storytelling structure. I'm really into this. It's so much fun to read people who've put tremendous amount of thoughts into how stories happen, how characters work, how heroes work, what the different types of heroes are, and how supporting characters work, and what the different types of supporting characters are, and dating all the way back to the dawn of storytelling time. They're just certain archetypes. It's because people don't really change that much. We get new technology, we get new pressures, new concerns, but we've all got death nipping at our heels. We've all got time and memory nipping at our heels. We've all got opportunity making us feel optimistic and excited about the future. We all know or seek love and to know and to be known. We all have some inherent appreciation for beauty and art. And we're all well aware of how hard it is to make beauty happen and preserve it, and how easy it is to break it. We understand tragedy. We understand loss. And so these characters across cultures and across time really do take on a lot of similarities. And no surprise here, the Bible is no exception to this. When you're a kid, you most easily relate to the hero character in every story. Part of that's because you're probably consuming simpler stories where the good guy fights the bad guy, and who doesn't want to be the good guy when you're a kid? But then, if you're anything like me at least, time goes on and you start to take a few hits. You make some mistakes. You do some dumb stuff. You thought you were right about things, but then you weren't right about some stuff. Or you just do something selfish and mean, and then you got that sitting there and you feel gross about it. And eventually the wide-eyed, blonde-haired venture out into the universe and solve everyone else's problems archetype might become a little bit less relatable for us. It certainly has for me, as I've become better acquainted with what's wrong with me. But as that goes away, what I think surges in its place is the relatability of the supporting characters. All of the different characters that come and go out of the life of the hero. And maybe we learn that the hero isn't even really an actual character. The hero is an emblem. It's something that no one actually is, and the supporting characters are where it's at. And so when you look at storytelling structure, you run into stuff like a threshold guardian, somebody who provides a barrier that the hero has to get through, and that barrier represents a challenge the hero has to overcome to grow. Maybe it's the ally who comes alongside and is unapologetically the dear friend, the right-hand man, the right-hand woman of the hero. Maybe it's the rogue, or I think the old school term is the shapeshifter, the one who comes along and looks like they're going to be a difficult pain in the butt, and they turn out to be a good guy after all. Last of the Mohicans, the captain guy, the British soldier dude who's a gigantic turd for the first part, but then he turns out to be awesome and self-sacrificing in the end. That kind of character. But here's the one that I have been fascinated with of late, and who I never thought I would find interesting, and it's the sage. It's the Obi-Wan Kenobi character who isn't really a hero, isn't young and awesome. They're not the best at all of the fighting and the dramatic stuff that a kid cares about. They have the thing that a kid cares nothing about, and that is like wisdom, or the ability to confer a blessing or a nudge, to give courage to the hero, to give clarity to the hero, to stay in the fight, or to be who they're supposed to be. No, you're a kid. You're like, I don't think I probably need any like advice or anything. I already know everything. I probably just need a bigger sword or guns that shoot larger bullets, and I think I'll be fine. Maybe a training montage at most. But as, again, you get a little bit older, you start to realize how important the affirmation is of this sage archetype, not just in storytelling, but in your own story. And don't you have somebody who you go to when you're in a difficult thing, everything is starting to swirl, you were pretty sure of which way's up and which way's down, but now it's getting difficult and you feel alone and awash in this project or this situation, and the sage is the person who you reach out to, or more likely they reach out to you to help calibrate your compass, to put you at ease, to push back on the stuff that isn't working, usually not with very many words, and to point you in the right direction. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a surprise person you never saw coming. Well, in Matthew 18, the passage you and I have been working on, we see Jesus, we see the Father take on this role of the sage in a really sneaky, interesting way, in a context that I think is often overlooked. But if you read this passage in context, It's not confusing at all. I think it makes perfect sense. So we're talking about the chunk of Matthew 18, which is one of the 5 big speeches around which the book of Matthew is structured. Jesus is giving the speech. And so he gives these instructions about, hey, when stuff gets weird, do these 3 things. Go alone and in private. If that doesn't work things out between you and whoever it's weird with, take somebody else with you. If that doesn't work, take them before the whole group. If that doesn't work, that's tough. You're going to part ways and have to think of this person as someone who's outside the group who you should love back into the group as though they are an outsider. And then in Matthew 18:18, which we looked at yesterday, he says, I tell you the truth, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. We broke that all down. But now we get to the part where Jesus takes on this sage character archetype. It says, again, I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it'll be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there I am with them. Do you remember the end of episode 4, the first Star Wars that came out chronologically, that Luke Skywalker, he's trying to destroy a battle station that's the size of a moon that can obliterate planets. The stakes are incredibly high. And he's just some kid who's flown around through Beggar's Canyon, popping womp rats with his buddies. And now here he is in this most pivotal role. He's just in over his head. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he's doing. And under all of this pressure, it looks like he's going to fail and collapse as the stakes get high and he's outmatched. And then what happens? You hear Obi-Wan, who's been dead since the end of Act 1 or middle of Act 2. And Obi-Wan has this steadying voice that gives Luke clarifying instructions, reminds him of who he is, reminds him of where his power comes from. And in this fantasy universe, it's very effective, and Luke is able to complete the task and be what he needs to be instead of crumbling under that enormous pressure he was facing. Likewise, this little passage in Matthew chapter 19 is not some weird out-of-context thing where Jesus forgets what he's talking about like a senile old man. He's like, well, I tell you what, it's really important that you guys get along, and here's how you fix things. Also, if 2 of you have an idea or whatever, just throw that out. God will definitely do it. And what else were we going to talk about? Forgiveness or something? All right. Also, that's how this passage is often treated. Like Jesus just out of the blue throws out like some secret code for if you get somebody to agree with you and then you tell God about it, God has to do it. It can't possibly be what the passage means. It can't mean if 2 of you agree on anything, God's over a barrel. No, it's nonsense. It's clearly connected to the previous thought about the incredibly pressurizing situation one finds themselves in when they have to go through those 3 steps to make things right because things have gone sideways or someone's sinned against you in church. The stakes in such a situation are incredibly high. And if you've ever gone through a situation like this, you know the sleep it costs you, you know the self-doubt it inflicts on you, you know the hurt that you drag around all the time, you know you can't think about anything else. You know that you're going to wrestle with anger. You're going to wrestle with disappointment. You're going to be baffled by the behavior of the other people you're sideways with. You're going to be disappointed in that. It might rattle your faith a little bit. And yet, Jesus is here saying, even if it's hard, you're supposed to go through these 3 steps. You just got to do it. You got to bite the bullet, and you got to go all the way through to the very end. It's going to hurt. And with that in mind, what an amazing thing it is that God chooses to wrap up this difficult set of instructions by saying, I'm with you. Even if only 2 or 3 of you get together to establish this the right way, to respond to it the right way, you are doing what I asked you to do, even though it's hard. And even if your head starts to spin and you are awash, you can be reassured that even in this most difficult of circumstances you might have to go through in church, that the guy who the entire religion is named after is there with you. The sage has your back. The sage reminds you of who you are. The sage imparts that wisdom, that reassurance. And when everything else is spinning and crazy, the reality that God is in this difficult thing and seeing you through this difficult thing is meant to reassure the kingdom citizen in the face of this difficult stuff. Next time around, we got business about forgiveness. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.